All right, everybody, welcome back to the Wildly Thriving podcast. Today's guest is Tracy Robert, or Tracy the Hope Dealer. For over 25 years, Tracy has been changing lives in health and fitness. Then in 2015, at age 40, she faced colorectal cancer. Treatment, surgery, and a permanent colostomy bag left her believing full recovery was impossible. She'd already battled chronic gut issues for years, dismissed by the usual just eat more fiber advice, but she refused to give up. Through perseverance, research in alternative health, and the help of incredible health team, she healed her SIBO by 2019, accepted her new body, and reclaimed her health, proving that thriving after cancer is absolutely possible. Now, a certified holistic health practitioner and detox coach, Tracy specializes in weight loss resistance, gut health, autoimmune conditions, and truly thriving beyond cancer. Through her Art of the Restart Academy, a 5-month coaching program, she guides people to heal from the inside out using ancient healing strategies, supplementation, and a one size fits one approach. And her message is this: your diagnosis is not a life sentence. There is real hope and healing waiting for you. Tracy, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Miranda. I'm excited to be here and talk about all the good things.
Absolutely. So we've got to start with your story. It's a lot that you had going on, and you have a lot of experience in this game. So start from the beginning. When did these health issues truly start for you? And tell us about like the experience that you had, how that affected just like your ability to live your life, and just how that essentially pushed you into doing what you're doing today.
Yeah. So I always tell my clients, give me the post-it note version. So I'm going to do that for you. Basically, for the most part, I grew up, I was really a healthy kid. I was one of those people that would be like fake a headache so I wouldn't get the perfect attendance award because I felt like that was dorky. So I was 17 and I end up getting mono. And I was, right up until I got the diagnosis, I was living kind of fast and furious. I was working, I was in sports, I was in dance, I was going to school, had a boyfriend, all of the things, and I just was wearing myself out. So I get Epstein-Barr virus. At the time, it's 1992. Nobody really talks about gut problems. Nobody's talking about autoimmune disease. I mean, it was very rare to have any I never heard any of those things. Well, it totally changed the terrain of my body. From that point on, it was about 3 years of just sickness, just went into overdrive. I had multiple bouts of strep throat, which is the cytomegalovirus virus. And then I had a really bad case of food poisoning. And I think all of these things were tripwires for me that kept just ruining my gut health. I think when I look back at what was my perfect storm, some of those stresses really changed everything for me. I remember having the very first time I remember this happening was it was the day after St. Patrick's Day. I was in college on the college, standard American drinking diet. And I can remember getting up and my stomach being super bloated. And I thought, it must be the green beer. It's got to be the green beer. I just won't drink, you just don't drink that. Well, then it was like maybe it's fried food or maybe it's this. So I was kind of getting healthier because I kept then eliminating these things. I didn't even know there was an
Mhm.
elimination diet, but I was basically doing that. But I went from like perfect dental health to like in 6 months checkup, 7 cavities, root canal. Like I didn't even understand how the oral microbiome and the gut microbiome, and then now we know the gut brain axis, all of those things were just connected. And for the following, like the next 10 years, I just battled with fatigue, bloating, constipation. I mean, you name it, I had it. I met a girl when I was about 24. She was all organic. And so she started teaching me some different ways to eat. I was marginally better. But then
Mhm.
by the time I was 29, I ended up getting my appendix out. And then 10 years after that is when I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. And it was a misdiagnosis, honestly. My traditional doctor, my OBGYN, I mean, she missed it. I had what she thought was an internal hemorrhoid for almost 10 years that it grew into a polyp and then turned cancerous. So I ended up with the permanent colostomy bag because it was kind of bittersweet. It was low enough that I noticed like something's really wrong now, but then it wasn't high enough for them to save my ass. I mean, basically, I on Facebook, I'd be like, SOS, save our sphincters, because I was like, how do we save my ass? I mean, I was looking up everything I could on like all the research, they were doing like pig intestines but nothing was like, there was no way to save it. You were just going to end up with the colostomy bag. I fought it really hard, but I had to succumb to it because I was in so much pain with the
Mm.
chemo and radiation. I did choose the traditional route only because um, I was doing everything right. I mean, I was kind of the fit chick that got cancer. I had worked out from the time I was a kid. I ate all organic. I did cleanses. I mean, I was the poster child of health and fitness. My work was in health and fitness. I had great abs, the whole thing. And so for me, there really wasn't like, okay, do this I was like, I don't even know what else is alternative. I feel like I'm doing all the things.
Mhm. Yeah, so like when you were obviously you were this fitness coach, right? You were um coaching people in that way. Were you having any other symptoms during that time in your younger years that you were kind of just ignoring and like writing off as normal?
Well, I don't think I ever felt it was normal, but it was my normal. So, for
Hmm.
instance, I went to the ER probably 5 times before I was like 21. And every time I would
Hmm.
go, the doctors, I mean, my stomach would be like I was 6 months pregnant and hard as a rock. And they would be like, just eat more fiber. That was their, you have IBS, which I feel like is code for we don't know what the hell is wrong with you. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
So that's the diagnosis I got. And it was like, eat more fiber. So I did. And it's funny because in 2019, when I healed my SIBO, I did 2 weeks on an all meat diet. Now, I was mainly plant based for most of my life. And so I always kind of chuckle when I see people out there telling people like you won't get cancer if you eat all the I'm thinking, sweetheart, I ate cancer or I ate vegetables and all the time. I was very lean, very fit, all into that kind of stuff. I didn't do protein powders. I mean, I was really clean and I still got cancer. And so when I healed my SIBO, I did 2 weeks on an all meat diet and then I really had to take a one size fits one approach. It was like, okay, I did low FODMAP, I did fasting, and then I did correct supplementation to really help build back my gut microbiome. So I did have bloating, constipation, and I was fatigued. And so when I look back, I can see those things, but I sort of was like, I have to live in this world. I guess I'll figure out how to manage this. And so I think I always approached it with hope. I'm going to try this diet. I'm going to try this. Maybe this will help me. The bottom line was nothing really helped me until probably after cancer. I started following Dr. Daniel Pompa. He was one of the doctors, and Dr. Mindy Peltz. She was like all about fasting. Dr. Pompa was about fixing the cell to get well. He had his own health journey. And so for me, that really made me dive into more alternative things that were really outside the box that I feel like now is starting to become more mainstream.
100%. Yeah. And when you had the SIBO, was this before or after you had the appendix removed?
This probably is what I had because they're finding 80% of people diagnosed with IBS is actually SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So I probably had this overgrowth. Ended up this past summer, I got cavitation surgery where they take the 3D scan and they can see if
Hmm.
you have any cavitation. So when they pulled all the gunk out, all the bugs, and then they sent it off to the lab, what was in there were things like these spirochetes and these things that were like my dentist was like, we need to make sure you get with this compounding guy that can give you a supplement. We cleaned everything out, but it made sense that I was getting probably as sick as I was getting. And so it probably was that all along. But I just don't think anybody, I mean, I went to 4 or 5 different GIs. Nobody really had, there was no medication for it back then. Like now, Big Pharma is like, here we have the answer. Well, back then they really didn't know what to do. So they would, have some Metamucil, I mean, was like what they would tell me. So, yeah, I mean, it probably was the overgrowth all along. And maybe what happened was that, the appendix is one of those organs that kind of all the junk gets dumped in, and then it probably got inflamed and then they removed it. But I really think, I mean, I had my tumor tested for Epstein-Barr, it didn't show that. But I think
Mm.
when I look through the thread line of my life, it just seems like that chronic inflammation was the issue. And in fact, this year, I celebrated 10 years cancer thriving. And when I went to my colorectal surgeon to have the colostomy, I said, help me understand how in the last 10 years I've not had one polyp, but this polyp happened when I'm 30 and grows over 10 years and I get cancer. And he said to me, unfortunately, you just got struck by lightning. And he said, now the good thing is your children probably won't have to worry about it. It's probably not something genetic. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that's fabulous.
Yeah, yeah, situational brought on by that mono, the
Mhm.
Epstein-Barr.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned the spirochetes, and what a lot of people don't understand about Epstein-Barr is that it has an ability to cloak itself and hide from the immune system better than pretty much any other type of pathogen that you can come in contact with. And this is capable of getting into the bones. The bone system is what's crazy about it. So it's very hard to eradicate, and you don't just overcome it. It remains dormant until you enter another stressful period in your life. So that's probably why you were experiencing those ebbs and flows in your health, where it's like, okay, like I might have this constipation, I might have this fatigue, I might be bloated. Those are things I can manage. And then you go and you endure some, stressful event. Maybe you're in college or whatever. And then, oh, now you're out. Now you're in the ER. That's when those spirocheted viruses, they come out, and that's when they start to wreak their damage because they're like, ah, her immune system's down. It's time to
Time to
be in
go.
action. Yeah, like it's time to get charged up. Let's hit this.
Well,
So,
and it's funny that you say that, Miranda, because when I think about like prior to me having the appendix out, like I was actually pregnant with my first son. I didn't know yet I was pregnant, but if you think about your body going through that, the stress of the hormones and everything, that happened right around that time. And then I went through, a few years after that, like I went through a divorce. I mean, so there was stresses that were occurring. And I think that's one thing I really focus on now is like vagus nerve, red light therapy, doing some of these kind of downstream therapies. They don't necessarily get to the heart of the cell. So I have the things I do to really help cellular health, but then I do these other additional downstream therapies to help me to make sure that I'm keeping my not only my immune system but my nervous system, because I feel like it went hand in hand with all of that stuff. Because when I got COVID, that's when, it seemed to like come out again, the Epstein-Barr, and then that's when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. So,
mm, the old Hashimoto's.
yeah.
We could dive into that. What
Love
was
that
your
one.
what was your original treatment plan for that? And did you end up reversing that over time?
It's not completely reversed yet. I'm still in the process. I actually did, one of the things I did was go through this COVID spike protein protocol.
Mm,
So, it's with this company called Medicinals. And so it was a 56-day course. And we did testing, and the testing actually they sent it over to Italy. So I had moderate level of spike protein. I didn't have the vaccine. It fortunately it didn't hijack into my bacteria because they check for different things. So that was a good thing. And then we do this 56-day course, and so I'll see what my after results are. But I also did a 90-day thyroid protocol. And I did because I was struggling with weight loss resistance. I mean, I always had, no problem losing weight, or I could tweak things or whatever. And over the 90 days, I mean, I was able to lose 10 pounds. And then I was doing kind of just different types of glandulars to help heal my thyroid. I did some iodine. There was just different things that I kind of tried to attack it with. And I did, when I got my blood work back, all of my levels besides my T3 were in optimal ranges. So I feel like
mhm.
I'm moving into a better space, but I thought maybe this COVID spike protein, which would have reactivated the Epstein-Barr, and we know now with COVID, that's another one that's just going to be hiding out, waiting for, to attack again. So I knew that like this has to be something I look at and see if this is part of the problem, because it's much deeper than just, it's not gluten free. I mean, I've done all that stuff like gluten free, dairy free. I mean, all of those things. It really showed up after I had COVID. Like within like that year, I started noticing some weird things, like to the point where I went and I did the Prenuvo scan, the full body MRI, because I was like, do I have cancer again? Like what's happening? And everything was fine, but they saw the nodules on there. So that was the
Mm,
bonus of going to get the Prenuvo scan, which I hope at one point it gets FDA approved because
mm,
that would be ideal, but it's very expensive unless you have insurance or because it's not covered by insurance.
mm. Yeah, I've never heard of the Prenuvo scan. That's
Oh, yeah.
specifically for thyroid,
No, it's actually a full body MRI.
full
So
body.
there's, no radiation or anything. You go in, they do a full body scan, like brain to pelvis, and it will
Mm,
show you not just cancer, it shows you, masses at stage one. So, like, I think it was Maria Menounos, the one who, she did the talk shows or whatever. They found stage two pancreatic cancer. So she was able to, it's just a way for you to go, oh my gosh, I have this. Now I can go do something about this. But it will also show if you have, things like the nodules for say Hashimoto's, or it will show like your ovaries. Like my girlfriend didn't know she was in menopause, perimenopause, and she was like, they're like, your ovaries are like raisins. It shows you this whole thing of like each one of your systems and what they're seeing. So it'll look at your sinuses. It'll look at your brain. So if they're noticing anything in the brain tissue that could be, potentially cause like strokes and things like that. So it's really interesting. Yeah, you should check it out because the Kardashians did it too. There's a bunch of
oh,
stars now doing it.
interesting. Yeah, I've never heard about that scan. I always recommend that people do like thermographic scans. And I know that you said that you had dental issues and that was what was causing the health issues. I firmly believe that there's specific molars that are associated with certain glands in the body, meridian lines, right, and TCM. And those, if you have a trapped infection, it can travel along that meridian line and infect the gland essentially. And it's not specifically the bacteria. It's the excrements that the bacteria are releasing, and they're releasing it into this biofilm matrix. And I think that is the major driver of like what set you up for this cancer was you got that infection, it created a biofilm matrix in the body. It doesn't matter how healthy and organic you eat, if you are not taking specific targeted supplementation and doing detox protocols that are actually breaking down those biofilm matrices, you are going to continue with that recurrent infection because they have a way to hide themselves from the immune system. And if the biofilm is still there, then you're going to continue to have bacteria releasing their endotoxins. It's going to be inflammatory to the tissues. And guess what? It's going to eventually mutate those cells and cause cancer. So that's something I harp on massively with my clients. And that's something I always incorporate into my programs is targeting the biofilms before we do
Right.
any type of pathogen or eradication, right? So it's like if you want to kick the homeless out of a town, you need to get rid of their area, like their homes, like the little tent city. And that's what the biofilms are. You don't just kick the
I always
homeless
say
people
it's
out.
like this like snotty layer that like they kind of hide out in, and that was when I did my SIBO protocol. That was one thing I took. It was called Interphase, and it was a biofilm buster. So that was,
Hmm.
for me, that I mean that was such a game changer for me because that was 20 years of suffering with a gut issue. And so I mean That was huge because you really do, you can feel hopeless with some of these chronic illnesses because you're like, is it ever going to go away or do I just spend my life managing it? And I really am a believer that there is answers. You just, number one, you have to discipline yourself and stay consistent. I always try things for about 90 days. So if it's something that I'm like, okay, this could be an answer to help me heal a little bit, let's give it 90 days. Let's, try it. Let's see what happens. Doing blood work, before and after. I mean, I just think it's one of the things that you have to be willing to stay the course on some of these things and realize it's not a quick fix. I mean, unfortunately, chronic illness is not a quick fix because it's much larger. It's not just you get strep throat, here's the antibiotic, right? It's so much
Hmm.
deeper than that because some people get strep throat and they never have any other reoccurring issues. They're fine. And other people, they just have it's the bucket theory, it's like you have a bucket and you have your emotional stressors and then you have your physical stressors and your chemical stressors. And if you don't detox well because of maybe MTHFR, you're not methylating correctly, then all of a sudden what happens, this bucket starts to overflow and then you're just chasing health all the time and you're trying all of these things. And there's so much out there on the internet. I know people get so overwhelmed, like what is correct, am I being scammed, and it's like I want to make sure whoever I'm working with that they feel like I have their best interest in mind. I'm going to meet you where you're at. And sometimes, like, I have the Art of the Restart Academy because I felt like I was hitting restart all the time. And I would beat myself up and be really frustrated about it. But the bottom line is sometimes we have to hit restart again. It's just like addiction. Some people they have to go back and forth into rehab for their brain to finally, get it, finally clicks. And I think the same for the body. Sometimes you finally find the right pathways, the right supplements, the right diet variations and strategies, the right fasting that's going to help you to get better.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. So talk a little bit more about that because I know that you're launching that course soon. Let us know when that's going to be launching. If you have a
Yeah.
time frame set up for that. I know it takes a lot of time and effort to build these courses out. But tell us a little bit more about like what kind of person this would specifically help and what exactly would be like included in your program.
Yeah. So, I always start with everybody. We do a 20-minute free clarity call. So I can take kind of let you give me your post-it note, make sure that we align well. I always do a neurotoxic questionnaire so we can kind of identify like, have you had like biotoxic illness like molds or Lyme disease, heavy metals, maybe that's an issue, hidden infections, pathogens, kind of give us a health history so I can really see what's your perfect storm, where you got to the point where your bucket is now overflowing, and then how we can build a strategy around that. So, my framework, I have three different programs. There's the 5 month, the Art of the Restart Academy Detox. Then I have a Art of the Restart Academy Diet and Fasting. And then I have an Art of the Restart Academy protocol fix where we would hone in on a specific protocol and maybe like breast explant illness or SIBO, for instance, or Hashimoto's, whatever it would be. So the 5 month really is the one that is the roadmap to help you heal from the inside out. So somebody who would benefit from this is somebody who is suffering from chronic health issues, gut problems, bloating, chronic fatigue all the time. They feel like they can't regulate their nervous system. They're stressed a lot, feel a lot of brain fog, weight loss resistance, somebody that maybe is post cancer and they're really looking to like, how do I now go from survivor to thriver? How am I able to heal myself after I've maybe had to go through traditional things like chemo and radiation? We spend the first month, I call it the prep phase, and we target 5 different things in the cellular membrane. So I really focus on teaching them about the cell, how to regenerate the cell membrane, how to reduce inflammation, how to restore your cell energy, get you to the point where you're methylating again, reestablishing that methylation pattern. And I think most important, removing the source. So let's look at your products. Let's get rid of the Bath and Body Works that might be causing your toxic issues. Let's look at what you're using to clean. What kinds of foods are you eating? We spend a lot of time with diet strategies, variations, fasting. I'm a big believer in fasting, which obviously can be very controversial. But I also talk about how fasting, there's different ways to fast. It's not just let's do a 5-day water fast or let's just do intermittent fasting. I think we hear these extremes. There's a lot of pieces in the middle of fasting that can be really beneficial. And I've seen that with clients where they're thriving now. Their blood sugar was all out of control and they have handled their blood sugar. They've learned so much more about their bodies because they know how to check their ketones, they know how to check their glucose. They're feeling like I don't have to be on medication because of it. So that's my goal ultimately is to give you the toolbox. When we get into months 2, 3, 4, we're going to spend a lot of time focused on body detox. And so using chelators and the correct binders to help move some of this stuff out of the body and help you not to auto intoxicate. Because a lot of times what people do, right? It's like, oh, I can detox, I can eat a bunch of cilantro, or I'm just going to do a little 5-day detox. And they don't understand that the prep phase that we do at the beginning is helping you open up your kidneys, open up your lymph, open up your gut, help seal up the leaky gut issues so that you're not going to feel those Herc symptoms. You're not going to feel like junk. Now, you might feel a little bit of the detox, but my goal is not to make, I want you to be able to go to work, and do thrive and feel like yourself again. So with my program, we're doing coaching throughout. So we're doing, Zoom coaching calls, 15-minute check-in calls. I'm going to have what's called Hope Dealer huddles. So I'm doing a beta testing group probably in March. We're working on editing everything now, and I'm working on all the PDFs that will be included in the course. And so when I do the beta testing group, that'll be a great way for them to go through the course. It'll be at a lower price point. So that they'll be able to give me feedback on that. So that'll kind of help have this weekly check-in with a group. I'm going to spend about 15 minutes teaching, 15, 20 minutes teaching, and then open it up for Q&A and really help people kind of listen to other people. To me, when you can hear somebody else's story and be like, I have that too, then they're like, okay, that's maybe when we have our coaching call, you and I are going to talk about that because, Jane over here said something that really sparked your interest. So, and then the last month we focus on brain. So using chelators that have ALA help to pass, things that can pass the blood-brain barrier and really digging into the deeper detox so that, we're getting rid of some of those heavy metals that can cause things like the Parkinson's, the neurological conditions, and, Alzheimer's, things like that. So given my history with gut problems, cancer, and then my husband has he's got post-thrombotic syndrome, but he had a neurological condition called CRPS, and
Mm,
that affects the vagus nerve. And so I
mm,
think the culmination of all of that for me was what drove me to be like, I can help people to a degree with exercise, with diet, even with fasting. But I needed the tools to understand how to really be able to teach you about your blood work, educate you on supplementation, and get you to the point where you're going to be healthy for the long term and not just for this like 5 months. And now you're like, okay, bye, see you later. And now you have to be on supplements the rest of your life. For some people like myself, I choose to be on specific supplements because I do have a tendency to not detox properly. My vitamin D goes down, and like it's funny because I went to my general practitioner, and my vitamin D was at like a 25, and then I had gotten it to an 80 in like 6 weeks, and she's like writing down what I'm doing, and I'm thinking to myself, well, hold on a second, aren't you supposed to be the one that tells me what to do? So I think it's encouraging to me to watch these clients now that I'm working with at such a deeper level, and they're getting healthy like they've never been because it's not just about doing some exercises and getting them stronger. I mean, that's a part of it. but also being able to teach them really strong tools and pulling yourself in and out of diets, pulling yourself in and out of fasts. And also, I think as a life coach, getting to some of those emotional issues that a lot of times we don't want to talk about. So I think I build a lot of authenticity and trust with my clients. So we do tap into some of those hard kind of emotional things that also contribute to your health problems.
Yeah, I like to compare it to like your software, right? We need to download new software so that we can create a reality that's more in alignment with what we desire, right? Because if we have this framework that was developed in early childhood that told us that we're worth nothing, that maybe we were sick as a kid, that our body is incapable of healing, and that's what we're projecting outward. That's what kind of reality we're going to create for ourselves. So I'm really big on that as well. Like your program sounds so similar to mine, same but different, the fact that you do like the brain last. I don't specifically focus on like the brain itself, but I'm using the same things like the chelators and the binders in order to cross the blood-brain barrier and decongest the brain essentially.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think, the most important thing is getting to the root cause, whether it's your emotional health, your spiritual health, your physical health. You need to dive into the root cause in order to break the stop start cycle. And and also embrace your adversity. Like realize adversity is actually your greatest teacher, and these are the things that are going to drive you to be healthier, stay healthier, and also pay it forward to your family, to your friends. That, just because the doctor says your cholesterol is high doesn't mean you jump on the statin route, because you think that's the only answer. There's so much information out there now, and I know that can be overwhelming for people, but I just think, when a client said, Tracy, you're my hope dealer because nobody has ever made me feel like there is a way out of this. And I felt like I'm going to call myself that. I'm stealing that. Thank you. Because I felt like that is all, when you have cancer, when you're diagnosed, that's all you're looking for is, what hope can I have? Where is the hope? And so that is what I want people to feel when they are working with me, is that I'm going to keep fighting for you as long as you keep fighting for yourself, and my goal is to give you the tools so that when we're done, you're able to know what to do and, be able to continue down this path. And that traditional medicine is great for acute issues, but when it comes to these chronic things, you have to look outside the box.
100%, 100%. We're definitely treating chronic illness in the most inappropriate way possible with the conventional system, the way that it's set up, because we're using disease screening for chronic conditions that are brought on by what? Lifestyle,
Right.
um, improper stress management. Sometimes people have a lot of trauma that creates anxiety, and then anxiety can affect the vagus nerve. And then what does the vagus nerve control? Whether you're in parasympathetic or sympathetic state, that can affect your gastric, juice release or your pancreatic enzyme release. Now we're not digesting food properly. Now we're not absorbing our nutrients properly. And then, all of a sudden, now we have a cholesterol issue, or now we have a hormonal imbalance issue, when really it all started back at this point 10 years ago that you didn't even know, or like something like yourself when you had the mono and you developed those biofilms at a very young age. And then it just created this, constant immune um, trigger and a constant cortisol release that eventually led to the development of your cancer. So that's why we're having these conversations, is don't ignore these early signs, right? Like if you're constipated, or if you're having chronic loose stools, you're chronically bloated, you feel like you can't think clearly, those are the signs that you have a chronic inflammatory issue that could be setting yourself up for something very severe down the line. And I know that you said that you now have a permanent colostomy bag. I was really curious about that because do see a lot of girls talking about that within the chronic illness space online. And it just seems like they are so chained by it, and it really limits them in how they live their life. Can you share a little bit more about your experience with that and how you've overcome that and continue to be confident regardless of the situation?
At first it was, I mean, I can just remember thinking, there's no way possible. Like, I remember Googling colorectal cancer, and like, that was like to me in my mind, I'm like, that was the worst thing that could happen. I'm like, that's not going to be my story. Like, I'm so like a Pollyanna sometimes.
Yeah.
No, no, no. And then to be like, this is my story. I mean, I have a picture of myself. My husband and I had gotten married. We planned a wedding in 10 days because I got remarried when I had cancer. And we ended up going to Hawaii. And he has a picture of me, and I'm standing looking at the ocean and I'm crying. Like, he didn't know I was crying at the time because I just felt like I don't know this body anymore. And so I would tell people that are out there, and I do, like when I'm on TikTok and stuff, like, you have to grieve your old lifestyle. You have to grieve your old body because there is a death to yourself, and it feels so abnormal at first. But I will say this, it makes road trips so much better. Like, it makes camping and having to use dirty toilets so much better. So like, there's a thing.
There's a
Um,
plus.
there's a plus. I think to myself, well, when I'm old and if I have incontinence, it's not going to be as big of a deal. Like,
Oh
that's what
my
I think.
goodness.
But I think for me, it was allowing myself to take my time to grieve. I saw a
Mm.
therapist, I worked with a life coach. And I did things like I remember being like, I'm scared to go on an airplane. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm scared to go on a road trip. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm scared to be in, like, say, a Bible study where it's like quiet, and what if it makes noise or something? I'm going to do it
Mm.
anyway. So it was like it was like I was giving myself, what do you call it? Like when somebody has like a phobia, like an exposure therapy. Like, I was like, do it, do it. And every time I did it, I got a little bit more confident. And so I would say it took me, I mean, I got cancer in 2015. I got on TikTok and fell in love in like 2019. I remember I was like, oh my gosh, it was like dancing and everything. I thought it was so fun. And that really made me feel better because that's really where I started telling that story because I felt shame. I think there's a lot of shame attached to it for some reason. I think there's a lot of shame with cancer, though. Like, what did you do to get cancer? Um,
Mm.
and I think I had to really overcome that. And it gave me a voice because I saw other people online and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one. Like, I think I saw two people ever. There was a girl named Zoe, who's a bodybuilder who had it. And then this other guy that was a bodybuilder. So it was like it was either older people or just people I didn't feel like were cute, and I still felt cute and young and everything. And so yeah, I think now I embrace it. I maybe have a day or two that I'm irritated about it, but for the most part, my kids are like, I don't even remember, they don't even think about the fact that you have that. And really I don't either. Like, I work out, I walk, I go on vacations, I swim. I mean, that was probably the hardest one for me was going on a beach vacation. Like, that was the toughest.
Yeah.
But you figure it out.
Yeah, you have to. You have to, or else you're going to be a miserable victim to your life for the rest of your life. And who wants to live that way? And I really relate to that part that you said about there's a lot of shame surrounding that when you have this image, right? Like, you're this fitness person, you shouldn't be having all these issues. And that's something that I battle with my health coaching. I have a hard time showing all of the parts of me and all of the quirky things that I do and my style and all of that because it doesn't fully align with what a holistic health coach should be. Like, I like dressing emo. I like wearing makeup. I like playing on my fitness pole, and it's just a fitness pole, but you see it from the outside looking in and you're like, oh well, that doesn't match up. There's a mismatch here. I don't like that. And then people try to shame you for it. But I think the more that you just fully accept who you are and whatever phase of life you're in, just the more happy you're gonna be. You know what I mean? It's so easy to say, "Oh, don't care what anybody else thinks," but that's I feel like such a blanket statement, such a simple-minded statement. What really, how you really overcome that is just full 100% acceptance of your life and just knowing that, things could be much, much worse. I mean, I see this one girl online that she literally has no arms, no legs, and she's washing her own hair in the shower. So it's just like those simple things is like, I can wash my own hair, like I can be grateful today. I can be happy about what I've got. So,
The beauty of I think about as women grow older. I think because
mm,
you really embrace who you are, and you accept it, and you accept the good, bad, and the ugly about yourself. And I think when you own that, there is so much freedom to owning the good, bad, and ugly about yourself. And to me, it's like when somebody's getting offended, there's some deeper healing that needs to happen. So if I'm offended by something, I always step back and go, what isn't healed inside of me? Because that usually tells me God's ready to open up the door on this one. We got to take a deep dive. We got to look at this because there's some work I need to do. Because I think when you walk in full victory and acceptance over who you are as a human and what you get to bring to the world, you realize I don't want to be like anybody else because my story is going to help the people that I'm supposed to help. And I don't need to be, Miranda or, Jennifer Aniston or whoever. I don't need to compare because there's always a winner and a loser when you compare situations. It's better to learn your own uniqueness and embrace yourself.
absolutely. And we all know comparison is the thief of joy. It's one of my favorite quotes. It truly is. And you can't focus on anybody else's journey because, in my belief, my personal beliefs, we incarnated here to fulfill a premeditated goal for our lived experience, right? So we came here with a mission. We already have it mapped out, and we're just supposed to actually execute, be on that path, be in alignment. And when you're not, things tend to go a little awry. And going back to your own experience, I feel like with the cancer is like I feel like you did choose that in some weird effed up way. I feel like you did choose that because your goal was to ascend to another level in your spiritual, journey or whatever. And in order to actually go beyond and go upwards in your frequency, I think it was required for you to go through that harsh lived experience so that you could have that wisdom and that you could have that understanding. And the only way that you can have that understanding is through experience. And sometimes that experience is extremely painful. So
Yeah,
we all go through stuff and it's going to be different for everybody, but we just, again, you can't compare yourself to anybody else's lived experience.
absolutely.
But yeah, I really appreciate having you on, Tracy. I'm sorry to end this early. I got to catch a flight.
Yeah.
But where can we find you online? Number one, do we have a website? Number two, when do you think the time frame will be for the launch of your new course?
Yes. Okay. So I am on social media as Tracy the Hope Dealer on Instagram, TikTok, and then on Facebook, I have a Facebook group called the Thrive Tribe Beyond the Diagnosis. So you can join that group. It's a growing group. My website is Tracy at Mosaic. Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not. That's my email. It is mosaicwellnesshub.com. And the launch of that. So right now it's currently like you could sign up with me and we can start. But the finished, like when I'm going to start my beta testing group is going to be in March, probably mid-March is what I'm thinking by the time we have like everything edited and ready to go. But I'm taking clients currently. They just have, access to some other things that I have right now until like it's me, out there. So yeah. But I have all three of my programs are active right now. So, and again, I offer a free 20-minute coaching call. And I have a free SIBO restart guide. So if you're
Mm.
struggling with SIBO, I have a guide of what I did, and you're able to download that at my website as well.
Amazing. I will link all of Tracy's information down below here in the description so that you can easily find her. I'll hyperlink everything. And yeah, thank you again for being on. I love this conversation, and we will catch you on the next show.
All right. Thanks, Miranda.